I've always been driven by the issues of trying to make sure you look after the people who've been left behind. I've always been frustrated by the fact that so many decisions in life emanate from a political decision, and the effect of them is it can be that people's lives are poorer. There's a detriment to their lives, whether that's the closing down of a service or the actions of a government. I can think of so many. You can think of the recent one, closing down the live cattle trade, to in the past where they closed down a railway line. To all these decisions, you say, well, where was that decision made? And it was either made in a state parliament or a federal parliament. And if you want to do something about it, if you really want to change the direction of your nation, it's obviously the logical place is to be involved with politics. And I suppose that's what drove me. Yeah, I always thought the National Party, because it represents regional Australia. I grew up with the National Party, and the local members were National Party members, and I grew up with Ian Sinclair as my local federal member. Your vision for those who were formative was Doug Anthony. So you were surrounded by that National Party culture, and it seemed like the logical place to go. But the big issue was, well, if you want to represent regional areas, and if you don't want to have that vision affected or clouded by other disparate interest groups, then your most purest form of representing regional Australia is with a party that's only for regional Australia, which is the National Party. In other parties, it's a decree from the high table. This is how we'll think today, or go out and think it. In the National Party, it's, well, we're making up our mind which way we think, and there's an active discussion going on behind the doors about how we go on this issue. I think here's a classic example. The National Party believes in the freedom of the individual. They actually respect, more than any other party, your right to be who you are. And if you so-called cross the floor, well, they don't clap and cheer, but it's not the end of your political career. And you can't say that about other parties. As long as you respect your colleagues, as long as you do it in the proper process, as long as you have a good, cogent reason as to why, then we respect your liberty as an individual. On the day they banned the live cattle trade, I just went straight to the doors and said, this is insanity. Now, I must admit the next call I got was from the leader of the coalition, who was not extremely happy with what I just said, but that's my right. I'm in the National Party. It's a great honour, but it's an incredibly hard job. If you want to do the job well, it's extremely time consuming, and therefore it's people think that it's not a job. It is a job. You wake up in the morning and you have a lot of work to do. And just in this break here, whilst we're having this interview, I think I'm on the road for 6 weeks. So you end up with 3 jobs. You're representing your local area, which you must do if you want to stay in politics, otherwise you'll get kicked out. Pastoral care to your colleagues, which you do by reason of your leadership position within the party, and running a portfolio for the betterment of the nation. And if you want to know what busy looks like, that's busy. The way I see it is work as hard as you possibly can, go as fast as you possibly can, dedicate yourself as much as you can, but not so much that you compromise your family. Don't ever take the people for granted. Treat people with respect. And if you can do that, then it's not a certainty, but it's less likely that someone can get under your guard. Always remember this, that the Labor Party and their affiliates lose because of incompetence. And I always say to my colleagues, when we lose, if we lose, when we lose, and because we do, it's generally because of arrogance. So make sure that you are always humble. Walk the street in a humble nature, walk down to the local Kmart, go into the local pub, go see the CWA and listen. And you might, if you listen closely enough, hear the concerns that will have those people pick an alternate if you're not doing your job, and he'll help you get in front of the problem. And I suppose the big one, that happens all the time, any airport terminal or walking down the street, when people come up to you and you think they don't notice in the public, but they do, and they come up to you and they just shake your hand and say, listen, mate, I just want to say you're going well, keep going, you're working hard, we really appreciate the work you're doing. And that means a lot to me, because that means if some person I've never met before in my life thinks it's worthwhile that they come out of the crowd and say, thanks for the work you're doing, then they do understand. I'm always concentrating on the job at hand. The job at hand for me is agriculture. if I can get that policy structured into such a form that I can hand it to the next person, whoever that is, whether they're outside of the government or whether we lose government and I hand it to a person from the Labor Party, but they are basically on a stable footing, so we don't get the wild oscillations in agricultural policy, that they can grab it and say, mate, if you just follow this, you'll be pretty well right. Then I know that the legacy of your work goes on after you, and that's a good idea.